And I believe we're live.
Fantastic. Thank you, Erwin, for that lovely video. Good evening, everyone. My name is Raksha Daryanani, and I'm your host for today's event, a dual book presentation on life beyond AI and growth storytelling. I'm a ghostwriter, writer, and content manager in daily life. And I am thrilled to be your host this evening, no matter where you're joining from. Maybe it's morning, maybe it's afternoon. And today's event is about a book launch, not just one book, but two books at the same time. And that's going to be done by Erwin Lima, who is a brilliant author and storyteller and also a co-founder of storylab.ai. And Erwin today will share the message behind his books. He will also share what encouraged him to write them and tell us a little bit about his motive and the value the books will bring. So let's welcome Erwin.
Thanks very much, Raksha, and thank you very much for doing this. I forgot to tell you that when you introduce yourself, it would actually be a great place for you to also do a minimal plug of your newsletter, which I've been enjoying.
Oh
It
my.
would be nice to mention that, I think.
No, I mean, that's just something that I do on the side. I mean, but yeah, thank you. I
Mhm.
appreciate that. I have a mindfulness newsletter which started 2 months ago, and it's been a pleasure to write it. And this is a lovely testimony to hear. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love that. I love that newsletter. What's the name of it again?
Reflect and breathe
Reflect and Breathe. And where can people find it?
on Substack.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really surprised, so I'm sorry. Okay, but now this is about you, so please let's jump into that. Please tell us, first of all, tell us about yourself a little bit more than the people know, because you've won an award with your previous book. So I'm excited to hear how did that happen? How did you get on this journey, and what more?
Yeah. Okay, so tell the people a little bit more about myself, right? That's the first thing you said. And then let's talk about the books, the previous book, and how all that happened. So, my journey professionally, I suppose, and then also as an author, the two are kind of mixed together. Started around, I think, a little bit more than 10 years ago. After a process that I went through that I designed for myself, and that actually lands in one of the two books that we're talking about today, where that process was meant to help me find my story and my purpose and my, growth, uh, 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 my growth trajectory, let's say. Um, and what I found out was that I always loved writing. I'd always loved creativity, and I'd always loved thinking. And I also was starting to get interested in this thing called marketing or online marketing, and that flowed together really nicely in starting out as at that time an independent freelance marketing content creator, and actually started with the first ebook that I created and published then, just to get my bearings in the world of online content creation, figuring out what that was about. Um, and that's about 10 years, like I said, about 10 years back now. And in the meantime, I've done a bunch of different things and worked in a bunch of different roles. They're all concentrated, basically, if you find the red line in that, all of those roles have been concentrated on helping people and helping companies and brands grow through the power of storytelling. And so that's what I do in my work now. These past few years, I've been focused at Neo Alpha as a growth storytelling consultant for brands. So I help brands find their story, their purpose, and help them translate that into a messaging strategy and a marketing strategy. And then I also sometimes help with actual creation of the content. But next to that, I'm also connected to a Bamboo Growth Hacking Agency, who, together with BMI, have created a course on growth hacking and continuous value creation. And I'm one of the trainers for that course. And obviously, of course, I'm also the co-founder and head of storytelling at Storylab AI, which is our, you could call it the modern AI content creation toolkit for marketers, or anybody in business leadership or marketing leadership or a content team, where not only do our engines provide you with all types of marketing content that you could ever possibly imagine to need, we're also really in a shift towards we don't want to just give you the content tools and generators. We also want to help you navigate how to use that content, or actually how to strategize about creating the content in the first place. So what we're now building is a community environment where people can find a lot of courses and other information on how to think about marketing strategy and content strategy, and how to 10x that with the help of AI. So how's that for a little bit extra about myself?
I think it was fabulous. I'm glad that you spoke about StoryLab because I'm actually sure that's the way we met. I remember posting something and you responding to it, and then I saw your webinar about growth storytelling and content creation, and it was amazing that the tools that you have in the platform is fab. And but today I'm excited to hear about these books because first of all, why two books at the same time instead of one? I mean, you're giving all the authors major FOMO, Erwin.
Like I continuously tell people, read the books first and tell me how you like them, and then let's discuss how I imagine I managed to do that. Yeah, no, but why two books, right? It's a very fair question, and I suppose relevant and logical question. And the reason is, so the second book, because I try to present the books in this following order. The Life Beyond AI book is book one for these two, and growth storytelling is the second book. Growth storytelling, if you ask me, that's the most important one out of these two, right? It's the one that I imagine, and I love to imagine this. I imagine that that book would be relevant and useful to any human being born in any time, any historic time, or in any dimension, or on whatever planet you can imagine, because I feel like it's always important for you as either an individual human being or a group of human beings, which, organizations or brands can be conceived as, to know who you really are. And to know that, you need to know what your story is, and that's what that book is about, right? And that book, it has been 3 years in the making now, because I started writing the first version of what now this book is, and I actually finished the first manuscript for that in 2020. I want to say 2020, might be 2021. I'm not sure. But there's a course connected to that, and I had created the course back then, and I test ran the course with a few people, but I wasn't happy with the bulkiness of that first version. So it took me, I guess, 3 years to reiterate, rewrite, reconceptualize until I got the format that you now have, and that we're presenting today. So that's the one book. But why do I need to present that book together with the book Life Beyond AI now? And that is because it feels to me right now like it's so important, and people don't get this. People don't get how serious and how fundamental of a shift it is that we're living through right now in regards to AI specifically, and more broadly, the shifts in technology, but specifically AI. It's like, I love the fact that a lot of us, right, in the marketing space, even us at StoryLab AI to a degree, but a lot of people in the marketing space, in the business growth space, business leadership space, are looking at this seemingly mostly as, oh, these are really cool, neat new tools that'll help us do whatever we've already been trying to do, only faster and more efficiently, and at lower cost. And what's actually happening, I firmly believe, goes way beyond that. It is way more fundamental and impactful than that. So we need to, raise our awareness around what is actually happening, um, and that's why the two books are connected. What I feel that this new technology is actually doing, for those of us who listen, is it's asking us some fundamental questions. It's saying to us, what is the future you want to be a part of creating? Who are you really? In other words, what is your part in that story of the future? And that's book one, Life Beyond AI, and the other book, Growth Storytelling, helps you along the path to figuring out what that story actually is. Is that making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great that you've explained now why they work well together and why you've decided to launch them at the same time. I must ask also, so you said you narrowed it down a lot. You were not happy with the bulk copy that you produced in the first instance. So
Yeah,
I think that's a win in itself, because to be able to distance yourself from the words you so dearly put on paper, as we call it, kill your darlings in the
yeah.
writing industry, you know how to do that. So that's fantastic.
I killed a lot
Um,
of darlings on that rewrite.
yeah,
Seriously, it was
a
about
lot of
three
it.
times as big.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Um, and so, and you've written books before, and do these two books build upon the current ones? Are they sort of sequels? How does it work?
Yeah, so that's a good question. There's really only one book that I've previously written and published that is connected to these two books. That book is Life Beyond the Touchscreen. Published that in 2020, right before the beginning of the Corona pandemic and the ensuing, worldwide lockdowns. And that book was about the impact of digital technology on our mental health as individual human beings, in our relationships and families, in organizations, and broader in society. And in that book, I don't give a lot of answers. What I'm really doing in that book is also it's really trying to raise awareness, because I had been working in the marketing space within the tech sector and within the SaaS and IT sector for most of my professional career. And I've always been a fan of tech, and I've always been very excited and fascinated about the possibilities that tech allows us. But at the same time, during the few years prior to that book, I had been starting to see some uh, apart from all of the great opportunities and possibilities that the digital tech was allowing us, I was also starting to see the negative effects and consequences that it could sometimes have. And I started to dive into that and really research it. And I figured out that, wait, hold on a second, I want to press the brakes. And actually, the more I got into it, the more I felt like I want to raise awareness. I want to raise the alarm, sort of, not to go that far, but I want to raise awareness around, are we actually conscious, and how conscious are we of also these negative effects that these technologies can have on us? Again, on an individual level, in social groups, families, organizations, and broader in society. And I mean, we I don't want to go over all of it again and reiterate a bunch of stuff that I've said over the years online about that stuff. Let's just suffice it to say that the impact has been grave and great. And I feel like it's important for us to be aware of that. And that's why Life Beyond AI is a great quote unquote sequel to Life Beyond the Touchscreen. Because if Life Beyond the Touchscreen talks about the past, let's say 15 years of digital innovation, and this inundation, right? This tsunami of digital innovation technologies, but also uh, stimuli that is coming towards us at breakneck speed over the past 15 years. Life Beyond AI is kind of the sequel to that, in talking about, well, we're at the beginning of the mother of all tsunamis of digital innovation and overwhelm and all of this. So that's the one book. The other thing, growth storytelling, and the way that is connected to Life Beyond the Touchscreen, is that Life Beyond the Touchscreen kind of ends on a note of, well, if we look at all these impacts that digital technology is also having on us in the negative sense, and we can agree to some extent that that impact has to do something with a sense of overwhelm, a sense of distraction, for some people even digital addiction. What could be the antidote to that? And that book, Life Beyond the Touchscreen, ends on a note, on an idea of, well, one antidote to that might be being really focused on figuring out what's really important to you. In other words, figuring out who you really are, figuring out what your story is. And I suppose if that was in 2020, that makes sense that that was around the time that I started writing the book that is now Growth Storytelling, because that's the answer to how do you figure that out. Is that making sense? I hope, I sure hope it is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's good to see the connection between the books, and then to see like the logical flow, because I think as a reader myself, I would like to know, okay, is this book a standalone, or does it build upon something, which makes me then curious, because I don't know, sometimes it's nice to read the book on its own, but it's also nice to read the book in like sequence, if there's number one, number two, number three, and then you're like, the brain works differently when you read it. So thank you for elaborating on that. And so, book one, if you allow me to ask you a question there, you spoke about human beings being impacted by technological developments. like AI and the consequences thereof, and the directions AI is taking,
Mm.
and what is the future that we're going to have with this new development. And so I was reading your book, and I've taken like a little screenshot, and I wanted to ask you the question specifically pertaining to that. So if that's okay, I would like to do that.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay.
Really curious what this is going to be.
Just a moment. It's taking its sweet time in loading, as computers sometimes like to do. But basically, come on.
Isn't it beautiful how technology works?
It's amazing. It doesn't let you down when you really need to have a moment, and when you don't. But that's fine. I think I have the original part here.
Mm.
Um, Can you still hear me?
Yes,
Yes, you
absolutely.
can. Okay. So
And otherwise, would you be able to recall like what it was pertaining to and what direction this is going to take us?
yes, yes. Basically, it was about the negative consequences. I had read
Mm.
that on page 200 of, or 200 something of the first book, and I was pondering on that, because it became really close to what I have seen in real life as well. I mean, I see people in the bus. I take the bus to work once a week, and if I'm in the bus, I see parents engrossed in their phone, and their child is trying to get their attention, but they're
Yeah,
not paying attention to the child, and the child is hungry for attention. Or other parents will see a screaming, wailing child, and they will hand them a cell phone and say, "This is for you, so that you stop screaming and wailing, and I don't have to deal with that." And I think, while they are temporary solutions, like you said, it's doing us more harm than good. And I
mm.
think that's the sad part. We're not realizing the consequences thereof. So when you wrote this book, did you write it as from the viewpoint of a human being going through it as well, or as someone who wants to help us improve? So not just from an author's viewpoint, but also as a personal experience. So what I'm trying to ask is, what were your experiences when you wrote this book in personal context?
Yeah. So, as to the question of am I writing this from the standpoint, because this is how I'm hearing your question, right? And please correct me if I'm wrong.
Hmm.
It seems like you're asking, have I written this book from the perspective of somebody who's almost outside of the thing that it's describing, and
Yeah,
looking at it from like a bird's eye view as the author,
yeah,
or am I writing it as a person who's in the middle of it?
yeah.
And my answer to that would be, what I'm actually more or less trying to do is connect those two perspectives in the book, right?
Okay.
Because, and literally, this is how life beyond the touch screen, so the precursor to these books, started. Is I was working in an IT company, learning about how tech impacts organizations and how it works in organizations, but also what is necessary to get people to change the way they behave and do their work
Mhm.
with the tech in organizations, and starting to notice my own levels of distraction, my own levels of stress, my own levels of overwhelm, and that all just started to kind of conjure up this feeling of, "Ooh, I need to write something about this." And that's literally, I started to connect those two perspectives in that book with like literally this little notebook I had where I started to write these one line sentences, these aphorisms. That's where that book actually started. And what I'm doing in Life Beyond AI right now, and by the way, this is the first time I think in both of these two books where I'm starting to really infuse it with a little bit of my own personal perspective and my own personal story in it, is I'm talking from the perspective of that author, but also me. And what I'm saying about myself is that, like, hey, listen, I get ripped by my wife from time to time because of the first book I wrote, or not the first book, but the book that I'm mentioning here, Life Beyond the Touchscreen. She goes, "Oh, so you're the author, right? You were that author on that book of the impact of digital technology and how we should curb our usage of them and be mindful of potential dangers and digital addiction." Huh? Interesting. Would you mind putting the phone down right now? Like I say in Life Beyond the Touchscreen, I am, or I was, one of the first self-admitted digital addicts.
Mhm.
I was there.
Mhm.
I was in it. I was
Mhm.
checking my email 1,000 times a day, and
Yeah.
at the time, I was managing multiple social media accounts for
Mhm.
multiple businesses at the same time. I mean, you work in content management. You know what that can sometimes feel like.
Mhm.
Uh, the thing you need to do for work draws you in, but then there's the personal stuff that you also have there. It's mayhem. So no, I'm definitely also speaking from personal experience there. Yeah,
Yeah, it's great you touched upon that because it's been a struggle for me as well to say like I really want to disconnect, but then when you want to disconnect, there's social media to disconnect on where you connect with other friends, and then you're still in the same realm but in a different way, and you're not able to. So I think this is an important topic, and I'm glad that you've spoken about it in the book as well, and that you're being vulnerable enough to say what's happening and admitting to how you feel as well and what your experiences have been. I think it's not easy to admit that we ourselves are part of this, you know?
yeah. I mean, but let he without sin cast the first stone, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
and what I would like to add to this, by the way, because I feel like this is important to mention, is that to the extent that we can all agree, right? Because I talk to a lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of people over the years about these impacts of digital technology that I keep trying to poke at.
Yeah.
And to some extent, most people that I've spoken to can agree that yes, they have had certain impacts that are also negative. Yes, I can see how these digital technologies cause overwhelm, cause stress. I've seen the research that talks about how digital technology is in some way, we can't figure out exactly the causality, but it is some way at least correlated to the rise of mental health issues in terms of depression, burnout, and these types of things in working people, but depression, suicidality, anxiety, and other mental health issues in young people, for some reason, mainly young adult males and teenage girls, but broader in society. And it's somehow also connected, probably, in my view, probably partially causationally, but at least correlated to the epidemic of loneliness that we're going through. So, and then there's the fake news epidemic, and then there's the polarization in society, and then there's the problems with the functioning of media, truth seeking, democracy, all these things. What I'm not saying is digital technology causes all of these problems. What I'm saying is digital technology has a role to play in those problems, and sometimes partially causing those problems. And what's important to mention here is if we can all agree that there's some role for digital technology in the way that all these things that I've just mentioned have played out over the past 15 years, then what's starting to happen now and what's probably going to happen over the next couple of years is going to be wildly more impactful than what we've just seen in the past 15 years. And that's why this is so important, uh, I believe, to all of us.
And so here's a question for you. If we have, pardon me if I call it the monster, if we have unleashed the monster, should we really be complaining about its consequences? The monster being this AI sphere, this artificial world that we have created with our very unlimited imagination and capabilities and skills.
Hmm.
Should we really be? How do you feel about that? That this little ethical dilemma there.
I think that's a neat question. Should we be complaining about it? But my direct gut level instinctual answer would be no, because there's no use in complaining about that at all. What we should be doing is we should be increasing our awareness around these problems. What I believe we should be doing is recognizing our own uh, so it's a story. What's happening to us is a story, and what I feel is important for us to realize is that that story exists, what's also important for us to realize is that we have had a part in that story and the way it has unfolded. We are currently, through the way that we think, the way that we feel, the way that we act, our agency, the way that we communicate, all the things we do, we are currently playing a part in the continued unfolding of that story, and we will do so toward the future. That I feel is important for us to do right now, is to become aware of the thing that's happening, the way that it impacts us positively or negatively, and the way that we, in turn, are able to impact that thing, that story.
Fabulous. So now let me ask you about the second book because I'm even more curious in the connect with the the connection that there is.
Mm,
Um, you talk about growth storytelling and the whole focus on growth and how and what we can become.
mm.
So tell me, what is the purpose of this book in the sense of what will be the takeaway for people that they want to learn from it? What can they do with it? What is the value of this book?
Yeah, that's a really good question and a really difficult one to answer. Let me try to say that as concisely as possible, which in general is a problem, I suppose, for people who write and specifically for me. So here goes. What do you get from that book? What you get from that book is, I hope, two things. First thing, you, as a human being or as a group of human beings, i.e., an organization or a brand, you are in many, many ways, in a very deep levels, you are living a story. You have been living a story, and that story is a story of evolution, or in other words, a story of growth. You are living that, you have been living that, and you will continue to live that. And that is a great and beautiful thing that once you start to realize that more and you start to be more consciously aware of that and grateful of the great things that are a part of that story of your growth and evolution, I do believe that either as an individual human being or as a group of human beings, you will feel better. You will feel more calm. But what it'll also do is it'll help you own your own growth more, and it'll help you own your own story more, or if you want to call it that, your growth story. It will help you own your growth story more. And this and what I mean by that is it'll help you feel more in charge of that, and it'll help you actually be able to direct the trajectory, that story, that growth trajectory of you as a person or you as an organization. That's the one. The other part that it gives you is, well, wait, but if I'm living in this story and if I'm actually the creator of this story, uh, to whatever level of consciousness that I am being that creator, how can I actually become more of that conscious creator of that story? Well, the answer to that is you start to become very conscious of what the parts of that story is, what the past of that story, the current and the future of the story might be, and how you actually come to that. Well, you find those steps in that actual book. So at the end of the book, hopefully, you're much more aware of your growth story, your story of evolution, as it has been up until now, bringing you to the current moment. But you will also feel that you can draw that line out toward the future that feels and actually is something that you want to be in the future and that you actually can become in the future. You know how to tell that story because you've practiced throughout the book, you've practiced how to put it on paper, how to tell it to other people in such a way that it makes sense, that it's one coherent whole, because you've practiced, like you've literally practiced little small bits of storytelling theory throughout the book, without, I suppose, without maybe even really noticing it. And at the end of the book, you have your growth story, or at least the inkling of it, the start of your growth story. And then it also helps you figure out, well, if I have that story, how do I make that story come alive? And there's little tidbits near the end of the book talking about, okay, so if this is the story for me as a person or us as an organization or brand, if this is the story, how do we make that story come alive, for it to play out in real life?
Okay, so what I'm getting is the gist is that you can use it for development at any level, and you don't have to be a writer, storyteller, or a marketer, anything of that sword, it can be used at any level for any purpose, correct?
Yeah, that's really been my impetus and my goal for this book, and I'm hoping to hear from readers. I've heard from a couple like early readers, but I'm hoping to hear from a lot more readers.
Mhm.
Does it actually work on all those different levels? So you as an individual human being, you as part of a team, or you as
Mhm.
a team,
Mhm.
and then for you if you're a leader in business, in branding, marketing, or identity culture in your organization, does it also work for you? And I'm banking on a yes, but let's see how it turns out.
Well, if you allow me to share, I mean, I've read the book as well, and one part that really struck me as extraordinary was the page 84 of the growth storytelling book, where you talk about where do we go deeper. And
Hmm.
there's this passage which I would like to read out loud,
Hmm.
if you allow me, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So the passage is titled, "Where do we go deeper?" The
Hmm.
middle of any great story often starts off with a close up of our hero, where in their face or their posture we see their rallying of all the courage, strength, and capabilities, and sometimes all of the helpers, bannermen, friends, tribespeople that they can muster. This scene or sequence communicates to us that our hero is getting ready to face the monster.
Hmm.
Who are your fellow Avengers, your fellowship of the ring, your Anna, Olaf, and Sven? I can see that you have a child. What are the strengths, values, beliefs, and unique capabilities that you bring to the table for this next challenging phase of growth? And to learn and execute a new thing, to conquer a new challenge, and to get a new result. And of course, to tell a great story, you need the best of what you can bring. And you need a teacher, wisdom, and a sword. And that's what we're going to find in these next few chapters. So I really loved these three pieces because they made me think of Robin Sharma's famous book, which I read some years ago, called "The Saint, the Surfer, and the CEO." I
Hmm.
don't know if you've read that book, but these
Huh.
three bullet points made me think of that. So tell me, the teacher, wisdom, and the sword. Tell me a little bit more about that. Tell the people who are attending, because I mean I read a little bit more, but I don't want to spoil it for them.
Yeah. So what that section, and I believe if I'm not mistaken, and it's my own book, so I should know. There are three sections in the book where I kind of do this, where I kind of talk about, okay, what we're going to see in this next act of this book, and what you usually see in this part of a quintessential story as our human mind understands it, right? The archetypal hero's journey, or the basis for all storytelling, basically that humans have done since time immemorable. And what I'm doing in those three sections and in this section as well is I'm bringing those archetypal parts of what we need in a good story to bear, to to somewhat teach you and or remind you of those parts as important essential parts of a story, but also to introduce them. And the way that I do it, I try to do it in such a way that that it it connects for you. Like, okay, so if I'm writing the story of our brand, let's say, of our company's brand, if I'm writing that story, it's important to think about it in terms of these archetypal images, right? The teacher, the wisdom, the sword. What is who and what has been our teacher, or as you see in a later chapter when we're talking about storytelling in the realm of marketing and branding, guess what? You're not the hero in the story anymore. Now you're the teacher to somebody else, and you're thinking about their hero's journey and how to tell that story. But so what I'm doing there is I'm talking about the teacher, the wisdom, and the sword, which is the important part that our hero gets in the middle, in the second act of the quintessential story, which if you want, we can translate that a little bit, and we can say, so the teacher is who's your helper, who's your guide, who's your advisor, that is going to help you figure out the part of your challenge, the part of how to slay your dragon, that you can figure out on your own. Secondly, what is that thing that teacher is going to share with you, or what do you uncover throughout your journey, helped with the uncovering a little bit by your teacher or by a lot of other things that you happen to come across. So what is that knowledge? That's what the wisdom is referring to. And then thirdly, obviously, the sword is is okay. How does that knowledge, that learning, what does that crystallize into? Is that a tool? Is that a certain thing that you now know you need to do? Or within the space of storytelling and in the realm of growth storytelling, that sword translates to that's your actual story. So that is what you need to find there.
Fabulous. And so, allow me to be a bit philosophical here, maybe even spiritual. Is this book your way of giving back to society, being someone who facilitates someone else's hero journey?
Someone else, what journey?
Someone
Heroes.
else's hero journey?
I really hope so. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I really, really hope so. And I think we've discussed this before. I'm not sure, but I know I mentioned it at the beginning here, right? What I do in my work
Hmm.
mainly, whether it be I'm working with an individual person who wants to figure out their story, or it's a team, and I'm teaching them how to bring their stories to bear, and so that they can grow as a team, or I'm working for a brand and helping them figure out their story. What I'm really trying to do is is exactly that: help them figure out their hero's journey, facilitate them mostly in figuring out their hero's journey, and well, that's what I've made my living out of for these past 5 to 10 years. Is that, um, and I love doing that, and I'm so driven to do that naturally, uh, and from my own story, from the things that have occurred to me throughout my life, that make it if I'd have to do that for free, if I'd have to work for free, that is the thing that I would love to be doing to help people with, because I so firmly believe that this world could be such the world is beautiful. It's a beautiful place. I truly believe that. There are horrendous, nasty things also occurring in this world, but still it's a beautiful place to be. But it could be so much better, so much more beautiful if more people, groups of people, organizations found their lane, found their story, figured out what it really is about for them, what it really is that they have to bring into this world. And so yes, absolutely. This book, specifically the book Growth Storytelling, is absolutely about that, about giving all of the stuff that I've learned throughout my entire life so far, and professionally, and distilling it into a thing where hopefully, if you consume that thing, this book, I'm giving you the core of what that thing is that I've learned and have been using, all of these years, for sure.
Okay. So, how about you inspire us and share your own growth story?
Yeah, how about?
How about, please?
So I knew you were going to ask that question, and it's the one that is most difficult for me to answer for a multitude of reasons. But I'm gonna try my best at the same time, and I like to kind of caveat it with the fact that, and this is also a thing that I say in the book on growth storytelling. I believe that your growth story is never finished, and it's a thing that you are allowed to, and that I invite you, and I also invite myself to reiterate at every juncture, at every step you take. So what I'm going to give you right now is my iteration of my growth story for today, right? And here it is, and I'm actually going to try to follow the steps that I try to give people in the book as I'm doing this, and at the same time I'm going to try to not be too verbose. So origin, part one: where do I come from? I come from a really loving, really sweet Cape Verdean family as the firstborn son, dearly awaited. And I'm born the first son of a really sweet Cape Verdean family in the Netherlands. So I'm born as a Cape Verdean immigrant child in the Netherlands, one of the richest, most highly educated, civilized, beautiful countries in the world. And I'm born with a brain that works a little bit different from a lot of other people in various ways, but a brain that also works fairly well, specifically in the ways that we're taught to use our brain in school. So, so that's the start, and that turns into the problem that I first notice around me with other people. So it's happening to other people. And literally this year, I figured out, oh, wait, it's been happening to me all this time as well. And that problem is that we have this tendency, I feel, to look at children, look at each other, and as we grow, look at ourselves, and to instead of look at what is the unique beauty and light and gift that this person has to give, we're going to look at, oh, here's the mold of what we believe a successful or good person or child in school should be, and here's where this person is lacking. Here's where, compared to that mold, this person is lacking. So we're going to focus on all of the things that are wrong or should be better, and where they should improve. And I was seeing that with classmates. I was seeing this with a few of my cousins, and the way that people would talk to them. And I've seen that story be told to humans, and I've seen humans start to internalize that all the way through middle school, higher education, and into the workplace. I have this one story of this colleague, this person I used to work with, that I loved for the light that that person brought into the workplace in all different kinds and ways, and then to see that person be coached to improve themselves in certain aspects and ways of being that were diametrically opposed from what was that person's nature and that person's natural light. And I believe that it's such a shame that we do this to our children, to each other, and to ourselves, because we really start to internalize that stuff too. And I've noticed, by the way, that it happens in entrepreneurs and leaders in business as well. They start out with this drive to do something, but as time progresses, they start to compare themselves to other businesses and start to figure, oh wait, this is how we should be. This is the mold, and this is where we're lacking. And I want to turn that thing around. And so that is, in a sense, relates to my purpose, which I was talking about just now, is I really want to help people figure out what that thing is that makes them special and that makes them, and to ride that out into the most beautiful, unique thing that can be, and that they can contribute to the symphony that is the world. And yeah, let's cap it at that, because I could go on with this story for an hour or two. I don't believe we have 2 hours tonight, so let's just leave it at that, if that's okay.
That was inspiring enough. I was just going to ask, do you feel it has made you, being aware of all this, doing all this research and compiling this book, has it made you a better parent, a better human being, a better partner, would you say?
Ooh, that's a tricky question. Good question.
No, I asked difficult ones.
Yeah, which is good. I really truly hope it has. And if I can't speak for my wife, but I do know her really well, and she's the most important, person that I vibe check with, and that I use, that we mirror each other, to facilitate and foster growth for us as people. And if I were to imagine asking that question with my wife present, or asking it to her, I do believe that she would crack a few jokes, but at the end of the day, say, you know what, definitely, it definitely does make me a better person, spouse, parent. Probably yes. Yeah. So let's say
Thank
probably.
Thank you for being candid enough to share. It wasn't a question to put you on the spot, but more as in terms of like self-reflection, because I remember you mentioned earlier in this conversation that um, you're doing this because you believe in it, and you would do it even if you weren't paid.
Mm,
And if that is the vocation that one has, then there's definitely benefits, and those benefits are things that we notice ourselves first
mm.
before we can actually spread them to others. Hence the question, and you answered it beautifully. So thank you for that vulnerability. Um, I don't have more questions. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Um, do I have anything else I'd like to add? I Well, there's a bunch of things I'd like to add, and as we've discussed near the end of the session, there's certain things that I would like to share with our audience and with
Mhm.
yourself, and um, I feel that those things are important, and I
Mhm.
feel that it would be maybe nice to segue into those right now, and maybe if we end up with 5 minutes to spare and something brilliantly pungent comes up for me that I want to share, then I will. And
Okay.
otherwise, we'll have spared ourselves and everybody listening 5 minutes at the end, which will be beautiful.
Absolutely. So carry on. I think the stage is yours.
Yeah. So in the invite for this event, we said there is a small gift for you at the end. And it's funny because I didn't figure that this conversation was going to go in that direction. We talked about me doing this thing for free, and I would I would still do it. So the fun thing that I have to share and the little present that I have to share is that both of the books, Life Beyond AI and Growth Storytelling, which I do believe are relevant for this time, and especially growth storytelling, are relevant at all times for you as a human being, as a team, or as a brand. Both of these books are currently, right now, available for free on my website as a digital download, both in English and both in Dutch. If you are so Dutchly inclined, if you'd rather read in Dutch, that's also possibly possible. So you can download both books for free. And what I've said is that if you feel like these books are valuable once you have consumed them, and you feel you want to thank me with a gift, then I've made that possible. So it's also possible for people to give me a donation as a thank you for the books. And that's a thing that I'm really happy to be sharing. I'm really happy to be sharing these books for free with people. And I really hope that it's going to come across for anybody listening or anybody viewing this later on as putting my money, or actually my books and my blood, sweat, and tears that I put into them, where my mouth is, in the sense that I care so much about this stuff that I'd rather have you read it than earn any or a bunch of money from it. Although obviously, if I can earn a bunch of money from it, I'd be super extra happy, of course.
Absolutely, I love that, and I think as authors we are always a little bit on the brink of this is a labor of love, and but we need to pay the bills, so it's always welcome, and I'm sure people will understand that, and hopefully they love the book more than enough to spread the word. So, what you can do as a reader or reader to be is you can download the books as he mentioned. And you can also check out storylab.ai, where you will see Erwin and his colleagues' fabulous work. And you can also follow and connect with Erwin on LinkedIn. And I think if you have questions and then if you want to pick his brain about his books and anything else, that's a fabulous way, because why not? That is the best way to connect. And we've got a free platform for it. And I also would like to say, spread the word. If you like the book, if you understood what it meant for you, if it gave you a gift, then gift it, spread it. That's the best thing we can do. Word of mouth is the best marketing. I for sure love them. I love the particularly the layout, because they're short and sweet. The sentences are short and sweet. It's colorful. It's interactive. There's little exercises. So I think there is not much to dislike about it. And I think the message, as you've heard today, is important. So all I would say is thank you so much for joining. It has been a pleasure to host this session today, and I look forward to your feedback. Thank you, Erwin, for asking me to host it. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Raksha. This has been my pleasure as well. It was fun. Uh, I'd like to add a miniature segue here and mention the fact that when we first met and started talking a little bit, I had been thinking a lot of starting a podcast one time. And for some reason, I was talking to a bunch of people about that at that time, seeing if anybody would quote unquote bite. And you were, I believe, the first person to go, you know what, I think that would be cool. So, regardless of how that plays out toward the future, I really appreciated this session. It was fun. I felt it had like a nice vibe. I'm just remembering I forgot to put on the background music, which doesn't matter. Didn't take anything away. Um, so thank you for that. And one last thing before we leave, and I almost forgot to mention. You asked, is there anything important to add? These two books, if you're coming at this from the perspective of somebody in marketing, business growth, these two books are going to help you think about how to navigate the AI tooling, the developing AI tooling, and storytelling for your brand, but they're not going to give you the best or necessarily the most directly applicable advice on how to improve your marketing specifically with the help of AI. And if you're interested in that, and the books actually talk about that near the end. If you're really interested in that, I strongly advise you and cordially invite you to definitely come over to the storylab.ai, specifically the community environment, and check out all of the juicy uh, uh, um, distilled tidbits of marketing and AI content marketing knowledge that we have for you there. I heard that it's ChatGPT's 1 year birthday today. Well, it's Storylab AI's 2 years and I think something like 3 month anniversary right now.
Happy birthday to Storylab.
What I want to say, like on behalf of the guys, we've been building marketing knowledge up for more than 10 years, and specifically AI marketing knowledge up for about two. And we've got a lot of free and paid resources there if you want to dive into that deeper. So yeah, I just wanted to add that to the mix as well. And one last thing to underline, you already mentioned, if you do like these books and if they do something for you and you enjoy them, the the greatest thing that you can do for me is to go create your story and live it. The second greatest thing that you can do is say something about it to me directly, or if it's a good thing, say it online so other people can hear about it. That would be fantastic. Absolutely.
And when hard copies come out, will you give us a big shout out so we can go and buy them? And I like to have a book in my hand, so that's
Yeah.
going to happen soon, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We're working on that. My buddy, shout out Giorgio Guldenaar, one of the best design people, creative designers, UX designers, brand design people that I've ever had the pleasure of working with, is working on a beautiful design for the two actually four physical books. So when they are out, I will definitely give a shout out for sure.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Erwin. And thank you, everyone, for watching and for listening to all the questions and the answers. We hope this has been a fruitful session for you. And until next time, good night.
Good night. Thank you.